the spiritual discussion program. I'm Saad in southeast London, and joining me as usual is Gregory. Gregory, how are you, and how's the weather where you are?
It's been very bright today and looks wonderful.
Okay, that's not like here in London actually. It's been overcast all day and a little bit, I'll call it slightly chilly. I think it's been about 13 degrees. So a bit different from where you are. So welcome listeners. As I said, this is a spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdushin. And we have a new topic every week. And tonight's topic is peace and harmony. And listeners, I also want to wish those who are celebrating Eid Mubarak, Eid al-Fitr. Some people, it started yesterday, and for some it was today. So blessings to you, all those who are celebrating Eid al-Fitr. So as I said, listeners, the topic for tonight is peace and harmony. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our UK number, it is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 00 44 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. I'm going to begin with what is the Grail Message? The Grail Message in the Light of Truth by Abdushin is the spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail Message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail Message, Abdushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail Message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. live, so that it permits only those people who carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far remained, which never leave any serious thinker in peace, if he earnestly seeks for the truth. Dear listeners, again, the topic we are discussing tonight is peace and harmony. Peace and harmony. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our number, it is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, as usual, I looked up the topic title in the dictionary, and there are 2 words, keywords, peace and harmony. So I looked up the word peace, and this is what I found. It's giving me 2 meanings in it. So this is peace. In the dictionary it says freedom from disturbance, tranquility. I'm not going to give the example they've used there, because in the sentence they've used there, it's not as, let's say, spiritual in our case. But anyway, so I said the meaning here, it says peace, meaning freedom from disturbance and tranquility. And then I'll give the second meaning also. It says a state or period in which there is no war or war has ended. So, Gregory, can I ask you to say, if you want to say anything about these meaning?
As is usual, most of the definitions given from the dictionary are typically intellectual, means they express things outwardly. It doesn't give you the intuitive meaning of what peace is. And that is the challenge.
Thank you for that. Actually, Gregory, today on the Facebook, there's one of these groups which has quotes from, you could say, famous people or from the past. This particular person, I must admit, I haven't heard of him before. It's a Chinese person, and I'll just say the quote first. It says, "What is called peace by many is merely the absence of disturbance. True peace cannot be disturbed. It resides beyond and the reach of disturbance." And this is a saying from Wu Xin. I believe he's a Chinese philosopher. I have to say I've not heard of him before. So Wu Xin. So Gregory, I'm going to repeat it again. This meaning given. Disturbance. True peace cannot be disturbed. It resides beyond the reach of disturbance. It rings very true, I think. Is there anything you'd like to say to that?
Well, most of these expressions are to some extent, a part of the fact of what peace is. That means they are looking at a different perspective of what peace is. To understand the intuitive meaning of peace, maybe a contrast could be helpful. A lack of peace, what does it engender? That is another perspective that many should consider in a scenario or in a state where there is no peace. What is it that many are able to perceive? What is it that is palpable to them? That is what one should be considering. And when one considers the lack of peace, what is palpable, the forms generated, then one would say the absence of those forms generated should be peace.
Right. Yes, it's a very good way to look at it, Gregory, because it opens up, your own reflection, or makes you reflect. Yes, what is that? Where, like you say, absence of peace, what does it bring? So, and I think that each person will have his own picture, his or her own picture, in their mind. Because we all have had experiences where, in relationships or dealings with people, where, we are not at peace, you can say. So, and Gregory, it's embedded in us about, to have peace. Like, we can't really live without peace. It's, or let's say we can't really enjoy life, or, or to stay, you could say, calm and, I think I can only say enjoy and, to have that without the peace. So it's like embedded in us. But somehow, Gregory, life is about interaction, and no two people are going to think the same way. So I really don't like this word, Gregory, but it's like this word, compromise. Does it mean you have to give in when you have when you think you have peace, and you have your idea how you want to be a particular way, and the other person you're interacting with has a different idea, and it doesn't seem that we can come to an agreement? Does it mean we must, in this world, with when we interact with other people, we have to sort of give in to the other, and the other person also? It's not a one-way traffic, obviously, because I can't say anybody can ever believe they can have the full sort of get everything what they want. So is that what it means, Gregory, that you have to give in to each other to have the peace?
Such is a scenario you have just painted only gives evidence that that expression, peace, has still not been understood rightly. And once it is not understood rightly, then the confusion still remains. And in many scenarios, many just have compromise. But deep within them, there is still some worry. That compromise is not peace. So one must consider what peace is, or the lack of it.
Right. Yes, as you said, Gregory, there's no, I mean, I know you didn't use the word satisfaction. When you use the word compromise, there's no, it doesn't give you satisfaction or happiness that, oh, because the word already includes you have to give in, and it's like going against your will. And then how you can be happy when you're having to give in? It can't be and that can't be really a peace. It's like you're doing it reluctantly. So true peace, Gregory, what is true peace then?
Whether it is called true peace or not true peace, remains the same. In that particular scenario, it is good to, as a background, consider what the lack of peace is. One feature which is common in any place, in any scenario where there is a lack of peace, is that changes of so then, or let's say, once the fear of danger is not there, once the fear of violence is not there, once the fear of conflict is not there, within the person or outside of the person or within a community, then that lack of fear in an excited state may be referred to as peace. For only in such a scenario can the individual build up deep within himself or outside of within himself.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. I think we are moving forward in our reflections about peace. Many times in our shows you have said all for one and one for, and let's say in business when they use this stuff, well, they don't use those words in business, but another way they say situation. Both sides that more. Well, that's a more reflective of peace than the compromise that I spoke about earlier. So it means you have to consider about the other person, and look at your own world. You know it all the time, but the other person's world, you may not be thinking about too much. So I guess that is where we can move and understand this, the word peace in a more so Gregory, just again, first of all, is that word? Just to think of that this way.
What the scenario one has just painted, the lack of the excited states of fear, fear of danger or of violence or of conflict. The key impression here, once there is no fear, peace dwell in the heart, internally or externally. Fear itself generates, or what may refer to fear structures. fear forms or fear structures could be in our thoughts, even in our negotiations. Deep within us, these fears still remain. And these fear structures or fear within our thoughts, even within our, they give rise to the forms of phantoms and of demons. These fear forms we are to see physically, but they do influence even our discussions with others. They do influence our bones, therefore, the human personality, unless is able to counter these fear forms, which then results, which could result in demons or phantoms, you find such personalities are on severe tensions, just as to severe tensions which have arisen from fear. He himself or herself would not wish another. Therefore, you now have what you rightly mentioned, one fall for one. That is the scenario of peace, as it should be.
Thank you. Thank you again, Gregory, for your answer, and just painted again about fear. So obviously, well, we from the situation, but we probably recognize the big impact it can have on, as you said, where there's an absence of why there's sense of peace. And he also mentioned about and they're having sting, which you could say bolden the fears. Okay. So let's look at this fear, Gregory. Fear, you're worried about something about yourself, but usually you would say something very hard to say because everything you have to look at it on its own. So, but because I'm talking about interaction between at least two people or more. So let's look at that fear in that situation. So Gregory, how can we recognize? I mean, we always have an impression of it. How do we, deal with these fears? How do we deal with those fears? Yes, talk to the person about our fears, and how do we deal with these fears?
Yours is based on the assumption that there must be a person, more than one person involved. Someone can be by himself or by herself, and yet one cannot see any external disturbance. That is still not in peace. For within the area in which he is, to fear forms. These fear forms, in quotes, could be those of the demons or those of phantoms. Demons, phantoms, when grouped together, will form furies. There are many who are easily given to furies, the lack of self-control, the lack of discipline. Just as a personality will wish discipline within himself or herself and assure herself the way forward, because he or she wishes to put up structures, which structures are inviting, structures are of benefit to himself or herself. The person have similar notion benefit to us. Then, in that particular scenario, you is safe. That means structures and set excited in which one wants to support the other and the other wants to support another. So you have a state of give and take where there is no exertion of is given out of concern, is given out of benefit, is given out of love. That is what's meant, or that is what our many should strive to deal with this state of fear. Which state of fear is the lack of peace within or without.
Thank you for your answer there, Greggy. It's bringing up many questions in my mind. And before I continue with that, I just want to let listeners know you're listening to the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Aprushi. About the Grail Message, of the Grail Message, you can go to this site, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail message MCE.com. The topic discussing tonight is peace and harmony. Peace and harmony. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. You can contact us on our UK, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of the UK, it is, excuse me, 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, the number 1.com. Also, you can listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again, space live stream. That's for the live show. You can also listen to the recording of the show, again on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again, space Grail Message, space the topic of the show, which tonight is peace and harmony. And of course, you can listen to our process. And thirdly, we're broadcasting on Zeno.fm /Bless Radio 1. Zeno is ZENO.fm bless radio 1, the number 1. Now, Gregory, you talked about phantoms and demons and furies just in your last answer, because you've said with fear present or there's an absence of peace, you can say. And but just I was thinking, furies and demons and sound like a bit of extreme. I know people may not be wondering, might be wondering what these terms are meaning. We're talking about when we talk about demons. There's not some cartoon characters that some people might be, mistakenly thinking about, or even though this is actually thought forms. And also, Gregory, what came to me when you're talking about that, in terms of absence of peace and presence of fear, came to me, or situations where there are extreme cases that fury especially would be having severe consequences, prevent peace. So I'm just in most situations we don't have such serious serious things happening. So Gregory, there's absence of peace. Is it only these? We're talking only about the fears and thought forms in an extreme situation, or is it any situation?
You will find, if one reflects very calmly, that prior to the precipitation of violence, prior to the precipitation of conflict, deep within it, or behind this, there is the fear. This fear is a state, excited state, the fear of danger. Depends on homes to these fears. Some are able to overcome their fear. Some are unable. They ahead and precipitate violence and precipitate which many now experience in Europe, in different parts of the world. Most of these conflicts are by fear. Although many may not, even the case, those that the case of Pharaoh, who was ill-treated and enslaving Jews at that time, what drove him was a state of fear that the people whom living may have to revenge back on him, a state of fear that those whom he was enslaving were better disciplined than himself. Sifted to the bottom. The cause of those conflicts, what triggers these conflicts, what triggers these particular scenarios that precipitated to violence has always been fear. Even from the so-called medicine men of those days. These, when analyzed very carefully, one can understand the psyche, in the psyche of man, whenever one has no fear, he or she is able to go confidently. He or she is so courageously. Whereas, where you have fear as the underlying substance, then peace cannot abound. Wherever you have fear as the underlying substrate in an activity, the likelihood all those forms have been created out of fear. These forms which one refers to as demons, these fears which one refers to as phantoms. These forms, even in thoughts, persist because the human personalities, through their capability of thinking, sometimes resort to fear. So, in accordance with these laws of creation, where fear forms do come together, do strengthen themselves, these fear forms exist, and sometimes someone who is susceptible to these forms due to his states of mind, you will now have that person carrying out activities which will be so terrible that many cannot imagine it. So these things are facts of life. These things happen. It is not a concept which is being painted. These things do happen. What many have not considered is what lies behind it. As soon as many consider what lies behind it, then it can be dealt with very simply through confidence, through reassurance between parties, through vigorous activity within man.
Thank you again, Gregory, for your answer and the picture you painted. Again, we're going deeper into this topic of peace by looking at how fear works, and something I think, as you've emphasized, we probably in a conscious manner, or examining peace in a conscious manner by looking at fear, which is the underlying thing, because when you look at the surface, you never get to the cause of the issue. When you look deeper, then you start saying, oh yes, there is a fear. Now, Gregory, you can't have, as I said, peace without justice. You hear that a lot in slogans, and so there has to be justice for both sides, not one side that thinks, oh, I got what I wanted, and ignoring what the other person sort of desires or needs. So, it's reminding me of the actual full topic tonight is peace and harmony. So you can't have peace without harmony, which means working together with the other side, if I can use the word side, and so there's a justice. You can feel there's got to be a love and justice, actually, These are sort of fundamental principles which we sort of, you could say, band about so easily, but not really reflect. Just like the word, the concept of fear, we haven't really reflected deeply. We just use the words of peace, love, and justice, but not really look at it deeply. So my question now, to have peace, let's look at a scenario, because it, as this is so, the topic is so wide. You can have peace within yourself. You can have a peace with your people around you. People of another nation, or with the world. So this is a massive sort of topic. So let's look at it first. Yes, I'm just thinking. So Gregory, okay, let me start like this, Gregory. One, be at peace with oneself before one seeks to have peace with his neighbor.
Of course, and definitely to be at peace with oneself. That means one should strive to build confidence. One should strive to build courage. One should try to build confidence which is upbuilding. Confidence and courage which is beneficial to himself, and because the human personality is not the only one in the environment. There are others like him or her in the environment. As we've stressed before, it has to be one for all and all for one. So the beginning must be a clarity of what peace. For as long as we have a community and there are people who are bound within the community, should there be peace? The first thing is to ensure each personality strives after peace. Confidence first within himself and know how to right, just as himself or herself respect the other.
Thank you again, Greg, for picture painting. Of course, we have to work on ourselves, and then, of course, it has an impact on our people around us as well. Now, Gregory, every time we start the show, we talk about what is the Grail Message, and we talk about our strengths and weaknesses. We have strengths and weaknesses, and we have to use them both. So now you can easily understand, Gregory, that we have weaknesses. When we have weaknesses, you can say it's bound to lead to some, you could say maybe some fear, because you mentioned already about confidence. Obviously, if you know, but when you don't know how to do something because of your weaknesses, or you're not as others, let's say, in this, whatever it might be, then you have a lack of confidence there. So, again, Gregory, how do we gain this confidence? Do we, knowing that we have strengths and weaknesses, do we just focus, ignore these weaknesses and just use only our strengths?
What you refer to as a weakness is only the strength which you yourself have either ignored or refused to develop or the strength which you yourself refuse to unfold, or be it the virtue which you have refused to unfold and haven't ignored it, it becomes a vice. And that vice is referred to in a name as a weakness. So the strengths which deep within we have as personalities, which nature, through the laws of creation, has been granted to the spiritual personality, those strengths which need to be cultivated, those are the virtues. In the process of cultivating these virtues, which are strengths, which one may use, the possibility is there that there could be friction with others. But in realizing that in one's cultivation of one's virtues, there could be friction with others, and at the same time, he or she himself wish to be respected because the other personality also has virtues which must be respected, and also the possibility is there that he or she might have ignored his or her virtues, and that only in coming together will one help the other, just as you have the right hand and the left hand, just as you have in a band, in order to produce in music such harmonious tunes, such harmonious forms, the need is there to work together such that we have a completion in support in the cultivation of these virtues. That is the task human personality was within any community. That is why there is a community.
Thank you again, Gregory, for your answer and picture that you've just painted. Now you mentioned that the word harmony, or harmoniously, which is the second part of the title of our topic, peace and harmony. So actually, I do want to go into that now. So Greg, I'm going to tell you what I found in the dictionary again for the meaning of the word harmony. It says the combination of simultaneously sounded musical notes to produce a pleasing effect. And to give an example of that, the piece owes its air of tranquility largely to the harmony. And of course, Gregory, we know that that's a musical example there, and there's a second one, but let's look at that first. So in the dictionary, Gregory, it says harmony, the combination of simultaneously sounded musical notes to produce a pleasing effect. And this gives an example of it in that sentence. The piece owes its air of tranquility largely to the harmony. Anything you'd like to say on in this definition, about this definition? Gregory? Are you there?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, there was a bit of silence. I wasn't
Your
sure.
discussion there refers to harmony in music, whereas the harmony which is discussed does not necessarily have to be music. There must be also, one must consider a scenario of harmony amongst human personalities that live in a community. Also harmony with the environment. Like in music, there are objects, there are personalities. But in the case of objects, when referring to music, each will produce a tone. And only when these tones are blended in the correct fashion, do you then find the scenario of pleasing music, which leads to tranquility, which also leads to happiness, which has a pleasing effect in life, where you have men and women, and the environment, which environment also contains plants, animals, stones, nature. All this must be considered. But in nature, when harmony is mentioned, it only means that there are individuals, not necessarily human beings alone. For harmony tones also arise even from the tides, which tides have come into existence due to the moon. The scenario which is created by an accumulation of objects, of human beings, that scenario, when it is considered as a whole to produce that which is complete, then harmony can be discussed. Harmony is not considered by one point or by one object alone. Harmony comes in due to the contribution of others. And in this contribution of others, you have completeness coming in. In this contribution of others, you have a pleasing effect. In this contribution of others, that saying, one for all and all for one, arises again and again.
Thank you, Gregory, again for your answer and the picture you're painting. And what I got very immediately from when you were answering this question, in nature, when we think about harmony, it's like balance. And not only that, Gregory, it's like nature knows, each species knows its place. When I use the word species, I don't just mean the animals or something, or plants. There's so many species within nature, but they work in harmonies. It's like they know their place, by default, so by automatically. They know where they stand and what their role they have to play. With the human beings, we know fully that they have free will. So they have a right, you could say, to cooperate or not to cooperate with the balance of nature, you can say, or the working of nature. And as we know from, you could say, the history of mankind, that let's say many times we have failed miserably or terribly. This is even an understatement, of working together. even with nature, never mind with ourselves. So it seems a very terrible or very difficult, let's say, thing for a human being to do that. So, and you mentioned the community just earlier, and I started to think maybe, Gregory, there has to be an appreciation, or there is a deeper appreciation or acknowledgement, you could say, of of different human beings within a. So you get, for example, leaders of the community, and then different parts of that community do different activities and play their role. You could say society, which means, as you mentioned earlier, there has to be respect for each group and each person there. Now, my question there, Gregory, is with this free will, is it possible to have harmony, you could say, naturally, meaning through voluntary sort of acceptance, if I don't know how to put it, but or has it to be enforced somehow, this harmony? Because in nature there seems to be automatic balance with all the elements, if I can put it that way. But with the human beings, because of the free will, it needs the cooperation of that human being to have a balance. So is it possible, that's my real question, Gregory, because of the free will of man or mankind, to have a harmony sort of voluntarily?
Because of the free will of man, it is very possible for harmony to exist within the creatures in creation. For a lack of harmony will precipitate some form of one-sidedness, which is akin to cancer. A lack of harmony will precipitate some form of exaggeration. Man has the free will to choose rightly in accordance with what nature, with what creation intends. For if man had no free will, then it only means that he is not free to choose. For everything we stream towards it. But having a free will, then the personality is free to select this first before that. So the free will to choose is an intrinsic feature of the human personality. And if the human personality strives after harmony, then it must be prepared to cooperate. To cooperate in the sense to respect, to acknowledge that just as he himself or herself has a free will, so are others. Just as he himself or herself has a free will to develop the talents, which talents are the virtues which has been sown into it, so also are others that have that free will. Those talents of modesty, of diligence, of courage and skill, of wisdom and humility. And that within its free will, not developing or not uncovering these talents, the other, what then precipitates in not doing that will be envy, will be pride, will be greed, will be slothfulness. So, motion being a law in creation and the human personality having their free will, it needs to make decisions which not only are of benefit to itself, the decision must also be of benefit to others, just as the decisions of others will be of benefit to it. For in any community, in any nation, if one considers that nation to be a band, by band one is referring to as an ensemble where different people play different notes. The notes brought together will, when considered as a whole, produce pleasing effects. In them, through their virtues, they are able to form that which is beneficial to all.
Thanks, Gregory, for your picture. I've got again another question on what you just said. But before I do ask this question, I just want to remind listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Uprishin. And if you are interested in knowing more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, R-A-I-L, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is peace and harmony. Peace and harmony. You can contact us with any questions or comments to join in the discussion. The number to contact us on our UK number, it is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you are outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. We are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, the number 1.com. Also, you can listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again, space live stream. That's for the live show. You can listen to the recording of this show also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space Grail Message, space the topic of the show, which tonight is peace and harmony. You can also listen to our previous shows on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, ZENO / Bless Radio 1, again the number 1. Now, Gregory, we've been talking about peace and harmony, of course, and we're talking about human beings. sort of cooperating to bring peace and harmony. And what I was, and nature, Gregory, is, you could say, naturally, automatically working in peace and harmony. With human beings, they have a free will, and it requires a cooperation, voluntary cooperation, for them to, join this harmony, working in peace and harmony. There's another point I was reflecting on, Gregory, that, as I said, you could say animals, plants, and nature automatically works in harmony. Somehow they know their place and therefore just fall into place. With the human beings, somehow they have you could say, arrogant character somewhere where they think they know better. And what I was thinking, Gregory, maybe because you don't see that in nature, that they, let me just come to this point first and then I'll go about nature. So for human beings, Gregory, it looks like we do need to have a recognition of the creator of this creation as human beings before we could, you could say, voluntarily cooperate. Something within us, you could say our ego seems to show off, or I don't know what the right word is exactly, but seem to think that we know better, or wants, somehow seems to feel that then we can do how we want to do something. And even though we recognize there is nature and there is, you could say, the cooperation necessary. But somehow, Gregory, it seems maybe there's another level for the human being that needs to be essentially present for us to cooperate with nature. And what I'm saying here, Gregory, is the recognition of the Almighty here. So is that a necessary ingredient for human beings to cooperate with nature and to work in harmony?
One may consider a counter question. Do the plants and animals, do they have a recognition of the Almighty before they cooperate with nature? Do the stones, the elements, do they have a recognition of the Almighty before they cooperate with nature?
And so in response to that, I will say they don't. Well, let me say I think they don't. And but as I say, the human being coming from a different species seems to have that. That's what I'm asking. Is it necessary for them to recognize that? Because as I say, they seem to know their place already, so they automatically cooperate. With the human being, with the free will, they can cooperate or they can not cooperate. And maybe they need to know their place. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That a man needs to know his place, where he stands. He knows he's higher than the creatures, other creatures, somehow, or feels that he's higher than these other creatures, so thinks he can do what he wants. But maybe he needs to recognize that actually there's somebody higher than him, that he needs to bow to that. And that's the way he will now, you could say, voluntarily. That's what my point is. Voluntarily, he will only fulfill that once he knows, come to recognition of where he stands.
But there is an assumption which has been placed there. The first assumption you made is that the plants and the animals know their place. Do plants, do stones, do the animals, are they as conscious, if at all, when you say they know their place? Because such a knowledge, as you have assumed, means they have the capacity of consciousness and self-conscious. That is not the case. As a matter of course, in nature, there are beings who work within these beings are the administrators of nature. Ever before the human personality incarnated in nature, these beings, as administrators, have always maintained nature the way it should, for there is a will which ensures the balance in and have been self-sustaining. There has been continuity in creation, and people or those who have the task of this continuity, the maintenance in the will of him, the task. So you have a picture of those who fulfill their task unconditionally. But the human personality started as a germ, as a grain, as an unconscious seed grain, an unconscious spirit germ. Deep within the human personalities are planted or implanted the virtues which many have always referred to. In order to develop these virtues, there is the need to make personal decisions. How they need to go about it. There are some that may develop the virtue of faithfulness as a start, some of heroism, some of skill, some of humility, some of compassion, some of vigilance and alertness. Different human personalities start with one or two virtues. That means they decide how they wish to go. If, however, they do not do that due to personal indolence, then it's as if they are slothful. Or if they go in excess, then gluttony arises. The human personality that has the free will to decide how to proceed needs to adjust itself in a step-by-step fashion. First, in becoming conscious of the environment, and subsequently, in becoming self-conscious. In becoming conscious of the environment, those beings that have been responsible for the elements, for the plants, and for the animals, those beings guide the human personalities to openness, to be able to appreciate that environment which they have embedded themselves. As a matter of fact, these administrators in nature, in creation, these substantiate things, which some are able to see, these beings which are responsible for the formation of stones, of the elements, of fire of river, of the oceans. These beings guide the human spirit, not the human spirit, until gradually, from that state of unconsciousness, it becomes conscious of the environment. In that process, for the human personality to appreciate the environment in which it is granted a garment which is homogeneous to that environment. In the final analysis, for the human personality to incarnate on earth, the physical body that you and I are using is granted as a gift such that the human personality can perceive and participate in the activities here on earth. Garments has been granted this human personality. It has been granted, and that which has been sown into it, in allowing it to unfold, that is a process of development. In that particular process, it becomes true, gradual recognition of what has been implanted into it. It becomes self-conscious. Only in self-consciousness are these virtues unfolded. All the opportunity is granted to the personality for heroism, for wisdom, for faithfulness, for steadfastness. Only when the human personality has used these virtues implanted into it and has allowed them to grow to such an extent, can one say it has become self-conscious. Only then is it able to recognize the will, which will has granted it the opportunity to become self-conscious. So that is its task.
Thank you, Gregory, for giving the explanation, of the human spirit's, you could say, development and journey. What I'm thinking, Gregory, as you mentioned, virtues and abilities have been implanted into us human beings. As a spirit germ, we carry spirit germs or spirit seed, we carry them on our journey to this earth, and then we develop them. And I'm wondering, Gregory, the animals, they don't go to school, but we human beings do go to school, and we spend more time in this school, as a child turning to an adult, compared to animals who seem to be very quick from the baby to their, you could say, adulthood, maybe just a year or even less than that, a few years maybe, maximum maybe, compared to humans. So what I'm saying, Gregory, even though we have these abilities, virtues so implanted within us, we still need to be taught, by our adults to so guide us. And even the question that I was asking about recognition of the Creator, maybe that is also, like I say, we can become like animal I say animal in the sense of follow the path that the animals follow in their way of development, but somehow with the human being, it seems, and there's an extra level that is necessary. I think you mentioned about the consciousness. We are self-conscious, and they cannot develop self-consciousness. So there's another level. That's what point I was pointing to, Gregory, where we somehow, to get to that level of self-consciousness, we need, you could say, an extra level of recognition. That's what I'm pointing to. So what I'm saying, Gregory, do we need, like we have, as I say, the bringers of spiritual teachings, the messengers of God, do we need that extra knowledge? That's what I'm pointing to, for us to fulfill our role, because we could be like animal and follow them the way they do, follow, cooperate with nature, but somehow with us there's an extra factor or element necessary in our development. That's what I'm thinking, Gregory, that needs to be taken account of. That until then we will not, let's say, yes, voluntarily we can obviously cooperate, but somehow there's another level of, I don't want to use the word education, but development that is necessary for us human beings. That's what I'm pointing to. So that's the recognition I'm pointing to, that our task as human being is not just like the other nature creatures who seem to be, you could say, fully set for their path, but for us we need a extra input of, if I can use the word, training, to fulfill our role as working in peace and harmony.
Only when the virtues have been developed, which virtues have been implanted, these are the channels through which the human personality can come to a recognition of the will of the Almighty, of the love of the Almighty, and above all, the power that streams through creation. One can only claim to recognize the Almighty, if and only if the virtues have been developed. Else, it is only a false recognition for all those who have been granted teachings, have always referred to those virtues to be unfolded, whether it be Moses or it be the Prophet Muhammad. If these virtues are not unfolded, then what many claim to have, they really lack it. For if indeed they claim to have it, a simple example is that of so-called Christianity, which Christianity, in the first instance, has been given the Ten Commandments, and then came Christ. Did they recognize it? If indeed they recognize Christ and has followed his path, what he told them, then the state of the world would not be what it is today. It was so strange that they asked him, and who is? These are the same personalities who have been prepared to unearth their virtues. Yet they could not recognize their neighbors, if they could not recognize their neighbors, how then? Their neighbors whom they see, whom they interact with, they could not recognize their neighbor. Now, you think they have the inner then capacity to recognize him whom is unsubstantiated. Man should be humble enough to admit his or her limits. The best a human personality can achieve in the first step, in the first instance, is to ensure the talents planted within it are unfolded and used vigorously. Only through these tools is he able to recognize the will of the Almighty. For it is, all these virtues are expressions which have come into being through the will of the Almighty. Only when they have come to a thorough recognition of it will they then be happy, will they then have joy. If anyone claims to have a recognition of the Almighty himself, they deceive themselves, because they do not have that inner capacity. All that many know is power is. First, they may come to know the example which Christ himself put forward. He himself as the personification of divine will. Subsequently, many are able, in unfolding their talents, to recognize the will. Most of these things you said are thoughts. You must ask yourself, the nature beings who are in charge of the administration of nature, have they not been showing examples? Has nature not been showing examples of how man should behave? Does it mean that nature, these beings have to show themselves physically? So, the first step must be that the human personality must recognize whom he is, his capabilities, how to use it. Then, subsequently, in an ever increasing way, if he faithfully strives after purity, after love, and using the virtues which have been implanted into it, it will come to understand that law which governs nature, which governs creation. Then, through its free will, it will then know how to cooperate. Only then will it have an inkling, an infinitesimal inkling of the vastness, of the highness of the Almighty, through which all has come into existence.
Thank you, Gregory, for your answer and in explanation, about could say, how we are meant to use our inherent abilities and virtues that we do, we could say the step-by-step process that we need to follow to could say truly recognize our abilities, and you apply them, and then we make progress, you could say, to develop ourselves. And then of course through that the teachings that have come to us, we can appreciate them as they're meant to be, rather than sort of just holding on to some ideas, rather than recognizing them as what their ideas are, so in their actual way, the way they actually are. So so again, Craigie, you're pointing to that there has to be a deeper reflection and appreciation about these abilities and gifts that we have. Thank you for that. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Uprushin. And if you are interested in knowing more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And we're broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, the number 1.com. Also, we're broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space live stream. That's for the live show. You can also listen to the recording of this show the next day. Again, go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again, space Grail Message, space the topic of the show, which is peace and harmony. And of course you can listen to our previous shows as well. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, zeno.fm/Bless Radio 1. Zeno is ZENO.fm/Bless Radio 1, the number 1. The topic we're discussing tonight is peace and harmony. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our UK number, it is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. Gregory, somebody's saying to me that the sound is off. So I haven't checked that. So listeners, it's happened in the past as well. Hopefully it's just a momentary thing. I cannot check at the moment. I'm just going to ask the person to please right. We'll continue. Gregory, I'm going to look at some specific, not specific examples, but you could say some, about, you could say situations about peace and harmony. And As you know, listeners, that there's a war in Ukraine right now, but it's not specific to about Ukraine. This question I'm going to ask now. So, Gregory, okay, I've got a sort of different two points on this question. Let me just say like that. So, Gregory, let's say there are two sides which are fighting each other, through violence, and let's say supposedly they want to achieve peace, but maybe you could say one side is not so keen on it, if I can put it that way, or has certain goals. Let me put it this way: each side has a certain goals, and until they achieve their goal, they don't want to have this peace. So now, what I want to ask Gregory is, so let's say each side has their own conviction and goal, like I said, a goal and a conviction they want to stand by. Now, should one side, or even both sides, consider this word, I'm going to use the word again, compromise in their goal to achieve peace? What I mean by that here, Gregory, is, let's say, the reason why I'm saying that, let's say, achieve peace, not it's hard to explain this exactly what I mean, but let's say it's been said, okay, if we make peace now, we can minimize the loss of life. It doesn't mean you get exactly what you want, but you actually stop the violence, let's say that. And it means that, there's, as I say, not a big loss of life or massive loss of life, which would inevitably happen if both sides just continue to fight. So, Greg, my question is, Gregory, should we pursue our goals because we want to stand by our convictions relentlessly, or should we have another principle where we believe that it is better to have peace through, reducing the loss of life, and just, try to achieve that? Gregory, did you hear me?
Could you reframe the question briefly, because I couldn't hear anything?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so just you can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm saying, I'm looking at the war situation in Ukraine, but this is an example. So what I'm saying, Gregory, should the two parties continue to fight and stand by their own conviction to achieve the goals they want to achieve, just standing and fighting, you could say, or should it be that the goal should be to minimize the loss of life to achieve peace, and, in other words, compromise rather than stand by your conviction?
The question has always been, hello, can you hear me?
I can hear. There's a sort of, I don't know, feedback or, but hopefully you can hear me, Gregory. I can hear you fine.
Okay. The question has always been, who wants peace and who does not want peace?
Yes.
Peace, like we mentioned, is a state where there is lack of fear, where there is lack of violence. As long as one party does not strive to ensure that that state exists, then there is no peace. And very sadly, there will be continuous loss of life. How they should proceed must be decided by that which each personality wish to have. If all parties wish to have the lack of fear, the lack of violence, then they must decide on that. Not one party can decide on that. What one should be looking at, or what one should try to find out, which of the parties wants lack of fear. That becomes an assignment for every personality in this scenario of war and peace.
Thank you very much, Gregory, for your answer. It really is so simple, you could say, or clear with that, looking at it in this way about the absence of fear, because then you feel confidence, as we've talked about before, of achieving that real peace, or just peace is really the word we should be using. Otherwise, it's not peace. It's clear cut. It's like a half. The word compromise, which is definitely not a very satisfactory solution to anything. Compromise, it never gives you a feeling, oh, I've actually achieved something, so I've given up something, because I couldn't get what I wanted. So that's really.
May I also come in here?
Yes.
That's when you have this scenario of war, many a time is that one party considering themselves superior to another party, or having the means to subjugate others, or having the tools to subjugate others, they feel confident within themselves. They feel haughty. They lack compassion, not considering that just as they themselves have challenged, so do others. There is the lack of truthfulness in these matters. For many things are then falsified for one simple reason. They themselves consider the strength of their arms. They rely on that. And there is the underestimation of the other party. But before long, because they themselves have not considered the scenarios very carefully, challenges then abound. And having committed themselves with lack of wisdom and with lack of humility, they then feel that they have compromised themselves, or sometimes they have the pride, considering they have as much resources to waste. For you must ask yourself, the resources which have been engaged in such conflicts, is it worth it? Would those resources not have been used for the development of the human spirit, for the benefit of all? Those who plan such things or who enforce such stupidity only give evidence of their lack of self-discipline, of their lack of wisdom. For what has then happened is that resources which should have been beneficial to many are wasted, all for nothing, over a piece of land. The question you must always ask yourself, that which has been granted to you within your domain, how much have you utilized it to the benefit of many? None. And in your lack of understanding on how to use the resources, be it human resources or material resources, in rashness, one jumps into conflict. So these conflicts are only exhibitions of lust, of envy, of greed, and of pride, which is the lack of development of the virtues which the human spirit should develop within himself and within the community.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for this answer. I've got another situation now, or scenario, I'd like to look at, which is marriage. We're talking about peace and harmony. And now, let's say, they say, husband is the head of the family and wife is the head of the home. And so the way they can live in peace together is, divide up the duties, if I can say this way. So each person then is, this is in the marriage at the moment I'm thinking about, can divide up the duties. So one is free, let's just say, as I say, head of the home, and the other one head of the household. And that way, each person has a freedom to act in this role. And just give, it's just like we were talking earlier, Gregory, with nature, where you could say animals and plants know their role automatically. So if we human beings set up a structure, I think you mentioned the community before. Now I'm talking on just a much smaller sort of relationship here, a couple here. So, Gregory, maybe that's also part of the, yes, you've talked about having, lack of fear or absence of fear is the word, in a situation. And if we give clear sort of, I'm going to use the word duties. Duties is not meant to be taken as something like an imposition. It's you could say just work. People do one type of work, another person does a different type of work. So maybe, Gregory, that's a part of the, you could say, a way of having peace and harmony, of assigning duties, specific duty to one person, in this case marriage, husband with one type of duty or work and a wife with another type of duty. Is this also a way to have peace and harmony, Gregory?
In a union, there are tasks. There are tasks which are visible, materially visible to all. There are other tasks which are not so visible to all. Each The man or the woman has specific tasks, for nature has equipped each one differently. Of the woman are the intuitive tasks. If she is able to recognize those intuitive tasks which abound due to her innate ability. Of the man are the rough tasks, which rough tasks becomes very clear in making provision to a large extent in a gross material manner. Also, there is joint tasks, which one supports the other, and other supports. There must be a balance in the exchange. There must be a balance in the support. There must be respect. That means that the task which one performs, the other is unable to perform that task. And in that acknowledgement, respect automatically comes in. For instance, in a marriage in which both parties seek for a child, the man never equipped to carry the child in his womb. In fact, he lacks that. The woman, on the other hand, is equipped by nature. That is acknowledged. However, it is the task of the man to support unconditionally. Respect is earned. It is not assumed. For those couples who wish to stand in accordance with the will of the Almighty, there must be a continuous striving to understand what the will of the Almighty is, in order to form a complete union, a perfect union. That, however, does not mean there are no challenges. Just as the woman may have her challenges, so is the man. Just as the man may have his challenges, so is the woman. But in uniting their skills and talents, the possibility is there that they will swing unconditionally in accordance to the will of the Almighty to ensure the tasks are well covered. Then they will mediate joy and happiness to others within the neighborhood.
Thank you, Gregory, so much for this answer and painting the picture yet again. About the activity in this case of a married couple. There's more to things than, let's say, appreciate. Again, that's today. So, listeners, we've come to the end of our show again tonight. We talked about peace and harmony, and I hope you've enjoyed the discussion. I'm going to read now from the Grail Message, from the foreword of the Grail Message, which is titled, For Your Guidance. The bandage falls, and belief becomes conviction. Liberation and redemption lie only in conviction. I am addressing earnest seekers only. They must be able and willing to examine this matter objectively. Religious fanatics and irresponsible enthusiasts may hold aloof, for they are detrimental to the truth. As for the malevolent and prejudiced, they shall find their sentence in the very words. The message will strike only those who still carry within them the spark of truth and the yearning to be true human beings. To all such, it will become the shining light and staff. It will lead them unswervingly out of all the chaos of the present-day confusion. The following word does not bring a new religion, but is intended as the torch to help all serious listeners or readers find the right path, which leads them to the longed-for height. Only he who bestirs himself can advance spiritually. The fool who uses extraneous aids for this, in the form of ready-made opinions of others, only walks his path as if on crutches, while ignoring his own healthy limbs. But the moment he boldly uses all the abilities which lie dormant within him, awaiting his call to help in his ascent, he is employing the talent entrusted to him in accordance with his Creator's will, and will easily overcome all obstacles that seek to divert him. Therefore, awake. Genuine faith lies only in conviction, and conviction comes solely through an inflexible weighing and examining. See that you're truly alive in the wonderful creation of your God, Apushin. And dear listeners, if you want to get a copy of the Grail Message or want to get some more information on the Grail Message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell it, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. Gregory, anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Wishing everyone a very beautiful week.
Thank you. And for me, listeners, the same. Eid Mubarak again to those who are celebrating. We'll be back as usual next Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time, with another topic. Take care, everybody.